What had seemed a disaster is fast becoming a major catastrophe for Myanmar. Officials in the secretive nation say the death toll from Cyclone Nargis is now believed to have reached 10,000. Hundreds of thousands more are without water and shelter, their lives swept away by the Category 3 storm. In a sign of just how bad things are, the country's normally reclusive leaders are accepting international aid offers and shipments are being prepared to be rushed in. We'll have the latest on aid efforts in a moment, but first this report from Imran Khan.
Thousands dead. That's the news from Myanmar's state television. Cyclone Nargis, which just a day ago wreaked massive damage, had initially thought to have killed hundreds. But now a more tragic picture of death and destruction is appearing. And it could grow, experts say. The true figures of people affected could be much higher due to the difficult conditions.
It's almost impossible to drive anywhere, and it has been delaying real assessments of just how much the damage is. At the moment, it looks as though it could be over 100,000 people who have been left homeless.
The World Food Programme says the relief effort is a massive operation.
The immediate concern is for humanitarian food, shelter, medical supplies and water filtration units. In most of the rural affected areas, and the cyclone, the track of the cyclone goes right through the heart of the principal rice cultivation areas of Myanmar.
Aid agencies are suggesting that the death toll could be in the tens of thousands. If that's the case, then Myanmar, already one of Asia's poorest countries, has been dealt a blow from which it will take years to fully recover. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera.
Well, joining us on the line now from Bangkok is James East from World Vision. The aid agency has nearly 600 staff in Myanmar. Thank you for joining us, Mr. East. If you could tell me, first of all, how easy is it for World Vision to work in Myanmar? Is the organisation working freely?
Well, we've been working there for many years. We've got some 30 project sites with around 40,000 sponsored children. So we find that there's the space to operate, and we think it's very important to be there. Obviously, there are many people, many thousands of people who are in need. So the critical thing for us is to fulfil the humanitarian imperative, and that's to be there for the people.
If you could paint the picture for us and give us the scale of the devastation you're hearing from your staff on the ground.
Yeah, well, our staff met with some of the government from the Ministry of Social Welfare yesterday, and they told us about the 8 townships, as they call them, that are most impacted by the cyclone Nargis, and they were saying that 90 to 95% of the homes in those townships have been severely damaged. When we added up the numbers, that comes to somewhere in the region of 2 million people. So we know that there's huge numbers who are impacted. When you look at where they're hit in the southwest and the Delta region, which is very low lying, and many people living in very fragile accommodation, we know that there's going to be a lot of devastation. It's taking some time for staff to get in and to do assessments because of the condition of the roads and the fact that trees have tumbled down. But we know that people will be in a very poor condition.
What's needed most, and what's at the top of the list? What's the top priority at this moment in time?
I think if you basically had your home destroyed, you would have lost your food. You probably lost your crops that were due to be harvested. You have multiple needs. You're going to need shelter. You're going to need food. You're going to need probably some medicines, maybe for injured children. You're going to need, basically housing materials to rebuild your property, and you're going to need food and water.
Does it worry you, and did it maybe upset your organization that initially the military junta in the country weren't open to international aid and now they are? Is it maybe too late to avert a major catastrophe?
It is obviously a major catastrophe already. The challenge for us has been that even our staff are impacted by this thing, and I think there was probably a period of just shock. Most people that I talked to within World Vision themselves said they'd never seen a storm like it. They were completely amazed at these huge trees that had fallen down and the power of the storm, and people have been struggling to to fix their own homes. I mean, within World Vision, our head office was damaged. All the electricity is out across the city. There's no water. So we're just talking about an enormous amount of damage. And I just think it takes a day or two for people to come to terms with that.
James East, best of luck with the relief efforts. James East from World Vision talking to us over the phone from Bangkok. Now, the worldwide food crisis has taken an ugly turn in war-ravaged Somalia, where government troops have opened fire on protesters, killing at least 5 people. Tens of thousands of people had been protesting on Mogadishu's streets, outraged that traders would no longer accept their cash. The food merchants claim the market is flooded with counterfeit notes in a country already struggling with record-high food prices and drought. As Mohammed Ado reports, the United Nations says Somalia is facing famine.
The war-ravaged, unusually deserted streets of the Somali capital Mogadishu came to life on Monday with thousands of stone-throwing protesters, angry at record-high inflation and rising food prices. They barricaded roads and burned tires. The protesters accused traders of pushing inflation to its highest level in 17 years by asking to trade in dollars.
The shops refuse to take old Somali shillings, and we have no money. It's a disaster we have not seen before.
Police had a rough time controlling the angry crowds. African Union peacekeepers from Uganda followed the events from far. Outnumbered, they did not bother to intervene. Most shops remained closed, and the protesters stoned the few vehicles that dared to venture out. Traders in the Bakara market, the target of the protesters' fury, in turn blamed the interim government for the runaway inflation. They say their decision to trade in dollars is for security reasons and lack of storage for the Somali notes. The Somali shilling is exchanging at 31,500 to the dollar, down from 15,000 just a year ago. Since the collapse of the state in 1991 and the subsequent crash of the domestic currency, the Somali economy hasn't had any way to recover, not even to replace aging banknotes. With no central bank to print Somalia's money, forged banknotes are widely used as legitimate currency. With the fake money eating into the economy, the Somali currency has today lost both value and credibility. The profiteering from the fake Somali currency has also created more destitution in the war-torn country, affecting the poorest of Somalia's poor, especially those whose wages are paid in the practically useless currency. Many in Somalia feel that these riots have been long overdue. Faced with numerous other challenges, Somalis seem to have forgotten their currency woes. And no doubt, rising food prices globally are making their troubles even more dire. Mohammed Ado, Al Jazeera.
The international price for oil continues to break records. Oil futures have surpassed the $120 a barrel mark. This comes after an attack on an oil facility in the major producing country of Nigeria and threats to attack pipelines in Iraq. In Iraq itself, more civilians have been caught in the crossfire in Baghdad's Sadr city. At least 10 people have been killed in fighting between U.S. forces and Shia fighters. In the latest attack, a U.S. airstrike killed 6 people, destroying houses and a school. Meanwhile, more than 15 Iraqis were wounded as helicopter gunships fired missiles in the neighborhood of Al-Ami. The U.S. military has not commented on the attacks. Well, only a few weeks ago, the Iraqi city of Basra was a battleground. Hundreds of people were killed as Iraqi army troops fought local militia groups for control. The Iraqi army won, and as Owen Fay reports, a degree of peace has returned to the southern city.
In Iraq, this is what security looks like. A little girl on her way to a birthday party. A proud grandfather out on the stroll with his grandson. A mother able to worry about her children crashing into one another and not about one of them being shot by a stray bullet. For all intents and purposes, Basra is once again safe, and families can gather and celebrate and simply spend time together without the fear of constant violence.
The current situation is a lot better than before. Armed gangs and some political parties were controlling the city. Many families were damaged or destroyed, and officials could not do their work. Now children can go for a picnic with their relatives.
And it's a measure of life in this city today that it takes a heavily armed military presence to make people here feel relaxed.
The situation is a lot better. The spread of the army all around the city generated the sense of peace and tranquility among people. You can see families heading to restaurants and coffee shops at night. The sight was impossible during the dark days we lived through.